about the impacts on ICH, of the impacts of COVID-19 on ICH. And we tried to have different perspectives and different people from around the world, from around Latin America, with different backgrounds, and trying to understand how was the pandemic going to affect the ICH safeguarding. And one of the most important things that we learned is the importance of making a clear distinction between the impacts of COVID-19 and the impacts of the measures taken by the states in order to cope with COVID-19. This may seem like a small thing, but it's actually very important, because once you make that distinction, it becomes clear that I mean, the nuances and the specificity of the measurements that the states have to take in order to plan for a post-COVID scenario. The biggest impact of COVID-19 was, of course, and it still is, the vast amount of fatalities. That's especially the case in indigenous communities, and it's especially the case with elderly and with and women. Those two segments of the population were the ones that were most affected by COVID-19. Especially, I mean, those were a lot of indigenous communities in Latin America were in very bad shape before the pandemic. So when the pandemic, when the disease affected them, they had very few resources in order to face the disease. So there's still a big, I mean, a lot of people is still dying because of COVID-19 and are not getting the help that they need. This was especially the case when you take, for example, indigenous languages. As you all know, when an elderly person dies, it's like a big, a massive loss for ICH. It's a massive loss of knowledge. It's a massive loss of practices. Is a lot of things that cannot be recovered. That on one hand. Now, on the other hand, the impact of the measures taken measures taken by the governments in order to cope with COVID-19, what we found is that the physical isolation that was imposed actually broke a lot of social relations and a lot of exchange processes. A lot of these communities were already isolated, but when you add you cut the ways of communication, you close the roads, you force these people to be even more isolated. And so you break the social processes that give birth to ICH. Another big impact of the measures taken by the states was that many measures were taken without thoroughly think in the context where those have to be applied. So a lot of them resulted in harmful interventions. For example, a lot of industrial food was given to many Amazonian indigenous communities where, for example, communities that never had tried milk before were suddenly having cow's milk, and that creates, well, many kinds of problems for people that have never tried that thing before. And also what we saw that was that a lot of touristic initiatives had to close and may never open again. So what are the main challenges for tourism after COVID-19? I can't stop in everything that I posted here, but I just like to highlight a few things. The most important thing, and I think I agree with Robert, is that the biggest challenge is to rebuild the tourism in the most responsible way possible, to rethink and reimagine the touristic initiatives with the communities being at the center of the initiatives. The communities have to be and have proven the importance of being at the center of the decision-making processes, but also at the implementation of those decisions. This involves also strengthening the community organizations and in Latin America in specific, having more spaces, more scenarios that involve the communities in the planning processes, in the decision-making processes, and also, making them part of the planning processes. In Latin America, a big issue is also that culture is not a priority on the agendas of the region. So it's going to be a big challenge trying to rethink culture and rethink cultural tourism when it's not a priority, especially when you're trying to recover from a crisis of this size. It's going to be also a big challenge to give communities more access to digital media, to digital markets. We have seen a lot of initiatives that are starting to, explore these possibilities, but we're still far beyond from a real connectivity. So that's very fast. What are also some opportunities that the COVID and the pandemic has shown us? I think I also agree with Robert on this, and is that this year has been an opportunity to rethink the economic dependence on tourism. Many communities, especially small communities, were heavily dependent on tourism. And when that income stopped being an actual possibility, a lot of them, most of them, had to find new ways of getting an income, new ways to connect with the markets. So this opportunity to rethink their connection with the tourism industry has to be fostered. It has to be supported by the governments. It has to be, they need tools to rethink, to reimagine. It needs a lot of work, but it's a big opportunity. It has also been an opportunity to rethink safeguarding plans beyond the representative list. In Latin America, most of the time, it's the ICH safeguarding plans are only made when people try to get a cultural manifestation onto a list. So the COVID-19 has proven that it's important to think beyond the list and to think about the many opportunities that and many challenges that are facing ACH. This has been also an opportunity to return to traditional activities, to practice a lot of things that were, like Robert said before, that once were made only for the tourist, but now are made for the community itself. When you think, for example, about food or about a lot of festivities, a lot of celebrations that are starting to gain that important meaning for the families, for the daily life. So that has been also a big opportunity. And it has been also an opportunity to connect with digital commerce and to find different ways of thinking about the tourist industry, to think about who's coming to visit, to think about the experience as a whole and the products that communities can offer. I think I'm running out of time, so as a final closure, I just like to share with you. During this year, we also participated with the UNWTO, with WINTA, with the Centro de Artes Indígenas Totonaca, and the NGO Impacto. Those are NGOs from Mexico, in the design of a project called Women the Recovery Indigenous Women in Tourism. This project was selected for the Paris Peace Forum, And it's going to be a really interesting opportunity to rethink the ways in which indigenous women can connect to tourism, trying to take into account all of these things that I just said before. I invite you to check out this website where you can find a little bit more information about the project, and we hope to create some toolboxes to replicate the experience in the different countries of Latin America. I think that's my time for now. So thank you. Thank you for everything.
Okay, David, great. Thank you for your introduction. And well, it gave us a clear view about what is going on in Latin America and what these challenges are. And I especially noted, of course, that it was that COVID was very, very harsh on the indigenous communities, and of course the challenge in Latin America that culture is not always a priority. So I think the challenges are even bigger in Latin America than they are in Europe. And so thank you, and once again, and also for presenting us with some ideas of how to go about in the future, and perhaps what could be the role of governments in your continent. So when I look at the chat function, most of the questions are about can we have this presentation, or could you send it to us? And I saw that Robert made a personal communication to everybody. I think that that you could send him an email, for instance, and then he can send you perhaps the presentation. But what I should also tell you is, of course, that all the presentations will be available on the YouTube channel. It's now recorded, of course, for YouTube, and we can see it afterwards. So if you have missed some of the presentation, you can go to the YouTube channel of the ICH NGO Forum and then watch the meeting in total. So so these are the questions, I think, in the chat function. I think it will be the most sensible thing to do is to pass on to the next presenter, and of course we're now going from Latin America to Europe, to Portugal, to be precise, to Anabela Correia, if I pronounce your name correctly. Sorry if I don't, if it didn't succeed. So I will invite you to share your PowerPoint presentation with us. So Annabelle, to you the floor.
Hello, good afternoon or good morning to all of you. And thank you very much on behalf of Fundação INATEL for the invitation to this forum. So I will share my presentation to you. So let me see if I do it quickly. Okay, I think you can see it now, right? Or not yet?
Yes, we can see it, but yes. But you should put it in the presenter option. You know, we now see all the slides. Yes, okay. Yes, okay. Like this. Okay, great. Go ahead.
Okay. So basically, what I'm going to try to do is to speak a little bit about also the experience that INATEL has regarding tourism and the intangible patrimony. So INATEL, only for you to have some information, was founded in 1935. So it's a old organization. And it started as the National Foundation for the Joy at Work. Today is under the tutelage of the Ministry of Social Security and Employment. And the mission, sorry, I have here something that is not, okay. And this mission is to develop and value social tourism, cultural recreation and activities, sports and physical activities, and also inclusion and social solidarity. So today, what I'm going to present to you, it's more about the tourism department operational work. Namely, we have hotels and the tour operator, so I'm going to speak more about the work of the tour operator. As you see, we have hotels, we have 16 hotels that are split all over Portugal, including the islands, with different on the beach, some on the mountain, and also some with thermal spas and different types of functionalities. So regarding the sport, we have a lot of complexes all over the country, but in particular, this one is worth notice. That is a big complex in the heart of Lisbon, where we do a lot of entertainment also and sport activities. Then regarding the cultural department, we have, they work basically in art and traditional culture, with working with more than 2,500 non-profit associations. And we have also some main events regarding the safeguard of intangible patrimony. We have one that we do it all over the country that is called Popular INATEL na Rua, which means in the street. And then the Poetry Day and the World Music Concert cycle with the world music during all the year. So regarding tourism, what I wanted to share with you is that for us, the social tourism perspective is that tourism should be accessible to all, allowing personal and collective development via cultural enrichment, with respect for local culture and the tourism workers, defending a fair and sustainable tourism. So we have these three main important concerns: the tourists, the locals, and the workers. So we defend, and we have been defending for many years, a tourism for development, and not the simple development of tourism that I will speak a little bit just in ahead. So let's say that in the economical, the tourism for development is the sustainable tourism that has concerns with the economical part, the social part, and the environment part. So meaning better conditions of life, questions of seasonality, the question of the social concern, who travels, who welcome, who works for it, the questions of overload, over-tourism, the protection and the equilibrium, which are extremely important, especially now. But so in INATEL tourism programs, we have different programs, starting from cycling to walking and trail running, also with the support with our sport department, nature tourism tours that we do all over Portugal, but also in Europe, especially in Europe, and also programs with tours with specialists, programs with in different areas of activities, wine, agriculture, festivity, etc. We also have a program addressed to people with low income and social vulnerability, which in 2019, we had around 12,000 participants. And in 2020, for the reasons that we all know, we had only 6,000 participants. But anyway, we have done it. So we had some groups going with this precise trip. And only for you to have an idea, so this program is a social program, is subsidized by the government, and people that has an income until around 400 euros, they don't pay anything, so it's free. And we are speaking about a 6-day program with a full pension, cultural activities, and also eating in local restaurants. So it's completely free. So, and what we do in this, during all these programs. So what is our concern regarding the ICH concern? So first of all, we start with the selection of regions of operations. So in each brochure, we choose different regions to operate with a special concern with the less developed and poor regions. So for instance, if we are going to the interior of Portugal, in one year, the next one will go to another different regions, trying to articulate always with the local communities. For instance, these partnerships with local communities, what we do, we use local guides from that region. So we, the much as you can, we visit museum, wine farms, handicraft centers. We use of at least 3 local restaurants during one tour. So we have established some guidelines. The use also of local companies, and of course the relation of local universities, which is extremely important to us. And the support of local suppliers, not only among our hotels, having from distribution from local agriculture, and also as well as cultural activities that are performed in our hotels and programs, namely with our collective associates that I've spoke before, the associations that are also members of INATEL. Then we have also special programs for festivities, festivities like religious, gastronomic, handicraft. Special program, we have a special program called Festivities, in which we promote tourism trips to different regions of Portugal with different traditions. We have issue a passport for the responsible tourists. So we deliver to all our clients a fidelization passport with, let's say, 10 commandments of the responsible traveler, and try to educate also people. And regarding our view for the tourism for tomorrow. So INATEL, it's a member of ISTO, that an international social tourism organization that defends a fair and sustainable tourism for all. And as I mentioned, a tourism for development and not the simple development of tourism. And this, of course, sometimes they are, it's not easy to put in practice, but we try hard. And I bring also to share with you an interesting study conducted by the region of Flanders, which I found it extremely interesting, and that was shared among these social tourism organizations that we belong. And they made a study basically to try to identify what makes some tourism experiences stay with us forever. And they came up, of course, some of us already know, but it's interesting when we come to these studies and we see it. Three main topics: the intense experience of a place, so from natural world to something to something different that we touch, to the warm encounters with people, travelers, residents, guides, taxi drivers, and activities that inspire the tourists. And they came up with these 3, which I found extremely interesting, which is the place, and starting from over-tourism to what they call the flourishing local communities, where they live the visitors, the community, the residents, the entrepreneurs, and all these, like they call it, the place keepers. So it's a model that I found it extremely interesting. And one of the things that they said about it, you can see it also on their website, which is extremely easy to read and interesting to read, is how can you strengthen the place? And among some of the ideas that are there and that you can see, there's one that is very important, and also namely in this meeting, that in this forum, among this forum, support people who keep traditions alive. So basically, what is important also is indeed to share with not only the government, but also with the people that is involved in tourism, to find a way of working together. And that is something that it's very important, and it's not easy, although we will always try to do it. So they came up also with these 4 transformational steps and inspirational practices. So first of all, becoming aware is the key change of process and create more sustainable tourism. We need all to be aware, taking responsibility, taking care of what's around you, collaborating, culture, heritage, nature, residents, etc., and connecting for an impactful tourism experience. People connect with people, and people connect with the place. Another interesting, I read recently also on The Guardian, was mentioned that, for instance, Amsterdam informed that his recovery plan after the COVID will be based on the donut model, which means, and I'm not going to speak about this, of course, but it's interesting to see that cities and communities and places are worried about a more sustainable way of developing the cities and also the tourism. And it's our opinion and my opinion that the ECH organizations have to do and to speak very openly and very often with these organizations and with governments. So what I feel is that the challenge for tour operators still remain. They already existed before the COVID and still continue. So sustainability, authenticity, simple forms of representation. Indeed, we have to avoid the false tourism experience, a long-term vision, that is very important, the dialogue and investigation, win-win partnerships, respect for locals, and the criteria, how to choose destinations, when to choose destination, when to do travels, the creation of infrastructures for some heritage practices. That is something that also is very often not so well designed, and use of a diversity of heritages practices. So basically, this is my presentation, my message. I will be at your available for you if you need some more information. Thank you.
Okay, Arabella, thank you very much for your great presentation and introducing us with the programs of INATEL, but also with some of your views about how tourism should be developed in the future, and not tourism in general. And you specifically told us, okay, it shouldn't be tourism in general, you should.
So we lost Albert. So I propose to go with the next presentation right now, while Albert reconnects himself. So it's not Jorain, it's Ananya. It's Ananya. Yes. Next one, okay. So please.
Can you see my presentation?
Yes, Ananya is perfect.
Namaste, this is Ananya Bhattacharya from Kolkata in India. I represent the NGO contact base. We are more known as banglanatak.com. I will start by thanking Albert for giving us the opportunity to share examples from India. I'm going to talk about ICH-based strategies to restart tourism after COVID. Now here in the picture, you see the Chow dance, the mask dance, which is in the representative list. And you may notice all the people are wearing masks. So this is one of the events which have just started now, where people are again starting to watch performances with, all the safety measures. To give a brief introduction about ourselves, we have been accredited with the UNESCO 2003 committee since 2010, and we have been part of the ICH NGO Forum actively for many years. Now, our work has been focusing on safeguarding intangible cultural heritage to develop grassroots creative enterprise for last 15 years. One outcome of it has been development of the artist villages or artist habitats as rural craft and cultural hubs, which have emerged as tourism destinations. The two key points my previous speaker said, David spoke about community as the pivot, and Annabelle spoke about the place. This is both are extremely important in the sustainable tourism model which has been developed. And we are also global partner of even WTO for promoting this model of responsible and cultural tourism which I'll share. So today, broadly, in the next few minutes, I'll be talking about the model, how it was developed and how it addressed some of the challenges which Robert mentioned, and then how it has helped in restarting tourism. Here you see the banner of Incredible India Weekend Getaway. And this is one of the prime campaigns of tourism ministry in India, where they promote destinations. And you see that starting from end of December, they're promoting cultural tourism. So what made this possible? Now, what was the philosophy of developing artist villages as destinations? Now, since you can see for the past 7-8 years, the government has actively invested in developing artist villages as rural craft and cultural hubs. And the idea was to bring the visitor to the village. So various strategies were used to develop an identity of the place as a cultural hub. And one aspect was, of course, the general tourists, the art lovers, but also it was a heritage education destination. So students, designers, musicians, they all came to learn and experience art, craft, music, dance. A key component of this tourism has been collaborative tourism. You see this in the inset. There are musicians, in fact, they're from Portugal, who are singing with the bowls. So, they come and do residencies. So cultural tourism here is also about exchange and learning about other culture. So this is a very critical component where, the tourism goes beyond just experiences, but creates new networks and new partnerships. One strategy which was very effective in developing this village tourism was setting up of what is called now as eco-museums, connecting the culture, the people, and the territory. So these eco-museums or community museums have been set up by the government in around 12 villages as of now. And I'm talking of the state of West Bengal in eastern India. And these museums explore enabling, they have enabled participatory processes for engaging communities in managing and safeguarding local heritage and fostering sustainable development. The living museums are centers for practice, training, promotion, exhibition, and collaboration. They have around 2 or 3 rooms where, the visitors can also stay. In the craft villages, they host a community museum showing exemplary works of art. In case of performing traditions like the chow or the baul, which are all in UNESCO representative list, these community spaces enable the visitors to take a deep dive into the oral traditions. For the young people, it creates, the sense of pride and recognition and interest for learning about their heritage. For the seniors, the primary keepers of the cultural memory, the community museums have enabled reaffirming and strengthening their collective cultural identity, which may have earlier suffered devaluation and marginalization. So these museums are, pivot in creating the identity and the brand for these places. In all these villages, there are around till date, around 20 villages which celebrate their ICH through festivals. Now, when we are talking of sustainable tourism, that encompasses a lot of things, right? So by definition, it has to take account of current and future economic, social, and environmental impacts, address the needs of the visitor, the industry, the environment, and the host communities. So the village festival is kind of epitomizes that. And people come and they experience, they enjoy, and often it regenerates the lost values, because often what happens, the traditions are no longer practiced. So the festivals often create a renewed context of practice. Now, since last 2-3 years, we have been doing a research with Coventry University to see how heritage sensitive IP and marketing strategies can be used. And also, this has a lot to do with the ethical approaches we are talking of in our convention, in 2003 convention. So for tourism, we know there are several certifications and, for ensuring the people visit and certifications on quality of hospitality and etc., etc. But here also, the intellectual property rights can be used to convey messages to the consumers. Earlier, we saw the example where photography has been prohibited. What has been done in these villages, they're using the CC BY NC license. They have put up posters that whenever you are taking photographs, please attribute and acknowledge and talk about our village and talk about our culture. So you see, in this way, the IP becomes a tool. You see this symbol here. It is a geographical indication logo for all GI registered traditional cultural expressions in India. So Chow mask has GI. So they use that in their promotion. Then Chow dance in their festival. They tell people that it is in the UNESCO representative list. So this is also a very powerful tool in promoting sustainable tourism where community has the control, so that, people, when they come, they film or record or photograph, they do not miss the attribution or giving a fair share of the rights to the community. Another outcome has been very innovative cultural spaces has been created. This space you see here is a Baul village, where Baul is a music tradition which talks of loving humanity and going beyond religious divide. So people come here, they sit with the Bauls, they understand their philosophy, they listen to the songs, and these hutments, they are called akras, where they sit together and discuss. Tepanthor, this is a theater village where the local indigenous group people there, they're called Santals, they stage performances in the evening. Now let's come to the COVID situation. How these building blocks helped in going from survival to revival. Of course, as all across the world, there was total disruption in tourism. Visitors stopped coming to the villages. The artists did not get opportunity to perform. The craftsmakers did not get opportunity to sail, and so on and so forth. Now, what worked was that because these communities, they have been organized and they have been managing their ICH and reaching out to the world, they use this time in developing new skills, new songs, new lyrics, new products. And the master artists who normally travel across the world were at home, and they used the time to train young people. And this was supported by both government and non-governmental initiatives. Another very significant thing which happened was the digital shift to the market. Right from the lockdown start at end of March in India, Facebook live programs were organized where the musicians sang. And initially, they were very reticent about it because singing alone, sitting in a room with no audience was something they were not accustomed to. But when the feedback started flowing in, when they saw the comments, they got excited. And slowly they got used to. And finally, this became an alternate means of earning. And not only that, a means of heritage education programs, online programs, where they even had international audiences. The craftspersons, they showcased the unsold stock. And each of these programs had around average of 5,000 to 10,000 visitors and followers, and they were sold immediately. At international level, we are all aware of the UNESCO Resili Art Initiative. Now, in India, what the government said was vocal for local. So there was tremendous movement to support the local craft. And in an initiative called Creative Dignity, various organizations across the country came together and online websites supported direct sale from the artist. So it was they adopted a different supply chain model. When normally artists had to send products to a warehouse and all that, those were all discarded because supply chain was disrupted. And directly from the artists, they created alternate logistics so that sale could happen. So all these led to resilience. So then now that the lockdown is over, and again our flights have started long back, and now trains have started moving also. So what ministry is doing is that they are promoting incredible India weekend getaways and promoting cultural tourism. So here you see the tour operators, they are presenting glimpses of the art and craft in a program in an open space with enough distancing and all the precautions. And they are encouraging people to visit this. Now, these are some of the statistics. Now, India has around 19.9 million international travelers last year, which is zero now, almost, like really dropped. In March itself, there was a 22% drop, and now it's almost closed. And we have lots of jobs disrupted, and even domestic tourism faces huge loss, and all the historical sites are just opening. But one interesting study which we did was that in all the rural areas, the lodges and resorts, after the lockdown was over since September, there is 62% occupancy. So people are traveling local. My earlier speakers also spoke about local tourism or national tourism getting more impetus. So these are some of the cultural destinations, local destinations where people are going. Now, building on this, what the government is saying, that when you are visiting the rural areas, also visit these habitats of the artists and the tour operators. They are also promoting this. So what happens? It becomes a win-win, that not only people are going there, they see the art form, they learn about the culture, but also the artists get opportunity to perform, to sell, and opportunities for income. So I'll share 2-3 examples. For example, in January, we have the theatre festival in the theatre village I mentioned earlier. So these Santal boys, they are going to perform, and they have built these cottages where people can come. Some of the places, it's also integrating the built heritages and the intangible. So this is Murshidabad, one of the last Nawabs lived here. So this is the palace, Hazar Duari Palace, which means 1,000 door, a palace with 1,000 doors. And there also it's a seat of Baul Fakiri. So the weekend getaway encourages people to visit the site and listen. So this is an active effort to get together the tangible and the intangible. And similarly, we have Sundarban, which is a World Heritage Site. We have Darjeeling, and all these places are known for their nature. So natural heritage as well as the cultural heritage. So there is a conscious effort to integrate ICH. This is another example which is being planned by British Council. So here they're linking craft with tourism. So people will go and they do workshops with the Shola artists, they will do workshop with the embroidery artists, they will listen to performances, and they will see Shakespeare being enacted in local folk forms. So these are some of the innovations which are happening on ground, and which, because they are community-led, community-centered, it is doing away with the challenges of over-commercialization. Of course, we are now in the COVID times, and whenever we are talking of tourism, we need to make the community fully aware. So, the whole program also has components where they're being trained in use of thermal guns, on safety measures, on precautions. So, to conclude, what I'd like to say is, along with safeguarding ICH, what really helped was also, investment in building digital storytelling skills of the community, in their social media skills, in their awareness of IP, and all these efforts helped in building resilience in the situation. So this is how it looks like in these village fairs. And the photo inset, it was sent to us by one of the excited storytellers community we have, who paint stories on long scrolls when the first visitors went after COVID and there was a resumption in tourism. So, to have community in control and to equip them with the necessary skills and resources is very critical. So with that, I'll conclude, and I have given some of the websites here. In HIPAMS India, you'll find a toolkit on sustainable planning for getting economic benefit and how to address over commercialization and other cultural tourism sites. Thank you.
Okay, Ananya. So I haven't heard your presentation because my Wi-Fi connection was somewhat lost, and but I heard that Martin took over and did it wonderfully and gave you the floor. So sorry for that, but I'm back now, and I shall try to moderate once again. And what I see in the questions is there's a question for Ananya, and I don't know if you've seen it yourself. The question at the beginning of your presentation, you said that local groups have been formed to take action in ICH tourism. How do these groups emerge? What are their roles? Could you tell us something more about this, Ananya?
These groups were formed as part of the initiative to develop rural craft and cultural hubs. So in all these artist villages, the communities, they have formed societies, not-for-profit societies or collectives, and they manage the community museum, they manage the festival. So they are groups formed with the artists.
Okay, okay. So I hope this is a clear answer to your question. So, and Jorijn tells us, okay, this is the role of NGOs as mediators. So, and this is where we are strong in, of course, as NGOs in the ICH NGO Forum. So, okay, well, thank you much for your presentation, Ananya, and thank you much for your answering the questions, of course. We shall now pass on to Jorijn and to Martha to do the concluding presentation. And I see that Jorijn is already sharing her presentation, so I would like to invite her to do her presentation. To you the floor, Martha, and to Jorijn.
Thank you, Albert. Together with Martha Fleuron, I will share you some ideas or proposals on the link between intangible heritage and sustainable tourism. And especially because, as Albert has already introduced, last year, we saw rising a lot of questions on tourism and commercialization. In the Intergovernmental Committee meeting by the evaluation body, and then it resonated also in the midst of our forum, the ICH NGO Forum, and the proposal was launched, as Albert already screened, to develop a toolkit to work on ethical tools for sustainable tourism involving intangible heritage. Of course, all of us were struck by COVID-19 this last year, but nevertheless, as some of us were already starting to work around this subject, for example, our NGO joined the process with the Dutch Center of Intangible Heritage, to which Albert and also Sophie in this seminar this afternoon are working. We set up a conference, which then, of course, turned into a webinar around the subject of intangible heritage and sustainable tourism in Flanders and the Netherlands. Then I guess many of you have seen also the call that was spread of the Volkskunde Journal to reflect on this subject of sustainable tourism and intangible heritage. So some of the research topics actually around tourism and intangible heritage were already starting up. And then we got a call in our NGO by Martha Fleuron, living in France, if she could do an internship with our NGO, Workshop Intangible Heritage Flanders. And Martha had a background already in tourism studies. So we put things together. We remembered the call of the forum to work on a toolkit. We were working on the toolkit in Dutch anyway for our own communities in Flanders. And then we thought, why not just try to work together now with Martha and prepare already some of the work for the forum. And let's see where we get within this year of 2020, and then we can share it in the larger network. So that's where we are. We have prepared a lot of materials, and I will first let Marta share the work that has been done and come back to you afterwards. Go ahead, Marta.
Yes, so concerning the content of the dossier, we have divided this thematic dossier into several sections. The first one is a short introduction to the topic to situate the link between ICH and sustainable tourism, which can also be used as a synthetic summary of the overall content of the thematic dossier. You can go to the next slide, please. The second section is the most substantive part of the dossier. It is a work of documentation and research on different themes related to ICH in tourism. It contains the definitions of ICH, of tourism, and of sustainable tourism. It details the link between them and the impacts of mass tourism on ICH. It also focuses on cooperation and partnerships within tourism activities that concern ICH, and on questions of authenticity. It then goes through some of the qualities and opportunities brought by sustainable tourism and gives insights on how to safeguard ICH through tourism. You can go to the next slide. The third section is a series of interesting examples or case studies with a focus on good and bad points and on the cooperation between ICH actors and tourism stakeholders. And this section can actually easily be further developed through the network of the ICH NGO Forum. You can go to the next one. The dossier also gives examples of ethical codes, principles, and guidelines existing on the same topic from organizations such as UNESCO or the United Nations Tourism World Organization. You can go to the next one. It also gives useful online resources, links, and reading tips to get as much information as needed for the readers. You can go to the next one. And finally, there is also a list of articles and books on ICH, tourism, and the relation between the two.
So as Marta showed you, we tried to elaborate already a good basis, quite extensive, I think. But what I learned also today is that there's many more in the wisdom of this group, which is quite to be expected as many of us are working and even elaborating day by day this kind of subjects. So we had a concrete proposal. Marta is, as she has just finished studying, is still looking for an opportunity to start working. And we connected to each other a few weeks ago again and had the idea that Marta could still, as long as she doesn't have a full-time job at least, could cooperate with our NGO, and we will pay her a modest volunteer contribution. And in the midst of this forum, we could start maybe in January and February to complete this file with at least already the presentations we've learned today, the links that we shared today, maybe new articles and so on that we unveil through this cooperation. And I think if the forum and all the members of the forum are enthusiasts, we could on a quite short term start to have an online web toolkit available with these links, with references, with good practices and so on. That could be further developed through the forum then in the coming months and years. And if people are interested or the NGOs are enthusiastic about this proposal, I think Albert, myself and Marta could lead this process in the coming year. And then maybe we will be able to propose an online toolkit to the wider networks around intangible heritage and UNESCO that has been elaborated through the forum. So this is the proposal we would love to share with you. Maybe just a final idea. It's just an idea, but maybe the Heritage Alive working group could also launch a call on case studies that have been developed in the forum, and we could link also with the Heritage Alive section. But of course, this is an idea to take up with the group on the Heritage Alive then.
Okay, Jorijn, thank you for sharing this important action. So I think this demonstrates the usefulness of, because this is exactly what we're looking for, and what I hope, what I think the state parties and the communities are looking for. So a set of guidelines and to see it on the internet. And it demonstrates in a way the usefulness of NGOs such as us, that we can do it, and that we can produce something like this. And so I hope it will be a success, and we shall work on it. So this leaves us, well, we have now all the presentations, and of course we need someone to recapitulate and to give us some final thoughts or some concluding remarks. And we have found Martin very willing to do this. As I said at the beginning, he was the rapporteur last year of the evaluation body, and had already then some interesting thoughts about tourism and ICH. So I would like to hear him and give him the floor. What does he feel about this symposium? What were things that he noticed during the symposium, during the presentations? So I would like to give Martin the floor. Martin, are you there? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And thank you for operating as a chair when I was away because of my Wi-Fi problems. So.
Okay, don't worry. It's okay. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everybody. So we never know, but I have a big challenge now, and especially with all these wonderful presentations, and especially because this year and this COVID-19 situation showed us many of the problems on depending of tourism. So we have many things to say. I will try to connect it with the report of the evaluation body, as Albert asked me to do, because as you may know, the evaluation body of the convention highlighted many of these problems, as well as many researchers around the world. I mean, many of you know many things about these problems, but also we all try to learn about the good practices, promote the good practices, show the good practices. For instance, last year when we evaluated the files, we found that sometimes the promotion of tourism is a key objective of the safeguarding plans. So some countries consider the inscription on a list as a tool for attracting more tourists or create leisure parks. So we realized, and we all know, that it could be kind of problematic. But also we have found over the years many good examples and many good measures, many good proposals in all the files we have evaluated so far. Last year, I remember we have a very good proposal from Kazakhstan with they were just caring about the intimacy and the familial context of the elements of intangible heritage. So they proposed measures to just keep this familial character of intangible heritage. And I remember 2 years ago, a very good proposal of Italy for a code of ethics for a particular element, code of ethics for tourism of a particular element. So we have had many proposals, and I guess this symposium showed us the same, but we tried to talk more about that. For instance, Robert, he taught us about the result of listing, and that's a big reflection that we have made during these years. But he showed us that it can be managed. It can be managed because the impacts can be mitigated. We have many bad impacts like changes, commoditization, the problems of community participation. Sometimes community is like just taking a part and outside the safeguarding measures, but we have new interests, we have new markets, we have sometimes more money for the communities, which can be good and can be bad, but many times it's good. So he showed us many specific cases like the Alarde Festival in Spain, the Cherokee. I guess we can learn about this these cases, which were very, very good cases. We can, as Robert told us, we can kind of learn from this pause. So that's one of the lessons of this year. And David showed us the impacts of COVID-19 on tourism in Latin America, but I think we can apply this impact to all over the world. I mean, we have the same impacts in maybe all the countries of all around the world. He showed us some direct impacts and indirect impacts. So the direct impact, of course, many casualties, and he was talking about a cultural crisis, which is very, very problematic for many communities. But also, he showed us that this COVID-19 is maybe an opportunity to rebuild tourism. So this idea of rebuilding tourism, I guess we can take it, and we can think about the economic dependence on tourism, and we are just again learning a lot of from Latin America, but it's the same from all the regions. And Annabella showed us, like from another perspective, all these perspective showing that they are thinking about tourists, locals, and operators, and this idea of tourism for development and not development of tourism, which is another idea that I think we have to take, and maybe for this proposal of Jorain and Marta, we can take something like that as a big idea. And finally, Anania talked about many different, and we have on the chat many questions and comments about that, about the role of museums, community museums, and this promotion of responsible and sustainable tourism, and this digital shift to the market that is coming with this COVID-19 situation, this skill development, and these programs like Vocal for Local, which is building new connections. So we have also many good cases and many good proposals there that we can just take for this final very nice and good proposal of Jorain and Marta that I think we can all support of this this web dossier, this online web dossier about good cases of tourism, not only good cases, about the good things and bad things of many cases of cultural tourism and tourism and ICH around the world. I think that's all. I think yes, I could say, and we could say many more things, Albert. So I will let it like this. Thank you very much, Albert, and thank you very much to all the presentations, which were really amazing.
Okay, and Martin, thank you very much for your concluding remarks, and also for your encouraging words. And well, that leaves me well to thank all the presenters, of course, for their presentations, and all the participants for their attention. And so I see that we have now 1 minute left to change channel, I think, to the next meeting of the ICH NGO Forum. So this is where we should end now this meeting. So thank you very much for your presentation, for your attention, etc. And see you next time during the next meeting of the ICH NGO Forum.
Dear Albert, before we're letting everyone go, I will, as the chair of ICH NGO Forum, okay, I would like to say thank you to you for taking care of this symposium, and to all the speakers, presenters. It was really nice to listen to all of you. And as you said, we are now going into a new part of this meeting today, and that is the presentation of the online presentation of the candidates to the steering committee. So I welcome all of you to please do stay on and listen to the candidates. Don't leave us now. And with those words, and again, big thank you to all, I would hand over to the election board, and I give the floor to you, Ananya.
My colleagues, Michael and Carlos will take over. Over to them. You're muted.
Hello. Morning. We are happy to be here to present the candidates for the steering committee. We give you all the welcome, and well, there's Michael. I give you the floor, Michael. Thank you. Your mic.
Thank you. Thanks, Carlos. We're very excited to be able to be with you today and to share the